I'm actually quite nervous to talk about this topic on here because it's such a serious topic and something that we are all struggling with right now. This is just a day after the most recent school shooting in Texas. And I know for me and for everyone I've talked to today in therapy, we're just all overwhelmed by what's happening in our culture. I think I heard on the news that this is the 27th school shooting since the first ones began a couple of decades ago. And it's just so heavy. It's so much. I know that most of us had a hard time sleeping last night as we're thinking about the parents who lost their children yesterday, and just the series of events that caused that kind of thing to even possibly happen. It's just overwhelming. My name is Monica Maurer, and I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm also the president and founder of the Center for Transformation. And we exist to help you create connection in this lonely and disconnected world where we all live. And I think this mass shooting, and then there were a few last week too, a couple last week, I think, just they weren't at grade schools, one in the grocery store. And I just think that these events are so heavy for us as a culture, and they're an example of the lonely and disconnected world that we're living in, and the overwhelm that does to us as a society, to our nervous systems, to be disconnected, because we are creatures who need connection. We need each other. We need a sense of community. And when we don't have that, it breaks us down and causes us to do things that are just so insanely troubling, so difficult, so wrong, so unfathomable, just hard to believe. And so I know for myself, as a therapist, as a mental health counselor, my brain went all over the place yesterday when I first heard about this too. I mean, I still remember where I was and what was happening. I was in my office after sessions when I heard about Sandy Hook, and I know all the shootings are so devastating. And when we hear about the schools, it's even more, because we see that these innocent lives. And then when we hear about grade schools, I mean, these were 10-year-olds who were killed yesterday. And I know we are all just, our hearts are going out to these families who are struggling. But I know that my brain, when I heard about this, we kind of, like, as humans, we toggle back and forth between, well, what needs to be done, and whose fault is it, and who can we blame, and what can we do about this? And I think we tend to go into what we call like an enemy mode when we think about it. Like, somebody is at fault and somebody should be doing something, and whose responsibility is it, and why is this still happening? And I think those questions are fair, and they're a part of our process. But I think at the same time, as an American culture, it's quite devastating, because we don't see this happening in other cultures at the same level that we see it happening in ours. So it means that something's not going right. Something's wrong with the way that our culture is doing life and community and family and school and friendship. And when we see the profile, I was just listening to a TED Talk that was filmed 3 years ago on this very topic, and the speaker was talking about just the profile of these shooters, that they're young men who are lost, who have had poor family lives, difficult family lives, who have been marginalized in their schools, bullied, called out for different things. I read the profile of the shooter from this Texas shooting from yesterday, and he was bullied for a lisp for his whole life, and his mom was an alcoholic, and he's in a dysfunctional family, and he grew up just not with the nurture and the care that a human needs. And then this happens, and our society pays for it. And we see the pictures of these beautiful children. One of the stations put out several pictures today. I think I saw 4 pictures of the students and one of the teacher, just beautiful, beautiful individuals who were just savagely murdered yesterday by someone who just was so hurting and so misdirected that he actually accomplished this task and hurt so many people. I mean, the multiplication is just so intense. And so as I was talking with my husband about it last night and just praying together and talking about how do we even process this, it was just through the night, just my thoughts were pensive and prayerful, and woke up this morning just thinking about the families and praying that their hearts would be comforted, and that they would find peace with one another. And just considering how we as a culture rebound from this. We've been so separated as a culture these last many years. I remember when 9/11 happened, we all came together, right? We put our flags out, and we said, we're here for one another, and let's do this thing, and let's support one another. And then, when the elections come, we divide and we become enemies, and we hate each other, and we blame each other for these things. And, I was thinking about how, in the storybook Charlotte's Web, which I love, I've read with my daughter many times, read as a child myself. And I remember that moment when Miss Arable comes out of the house, and they say, this pig, everybody's saying, this pig is amazing. And she says, seems to me like you have that wrong. It's not the pig that's amazing. It's actually the spider. But who am I, right? And I think sometimes there's this sense in our culture when we're pointing fingers and we're blaming, we're saying, this is the reason, this is the reason, this is the reason, that really maybe we're not looking at the real reason. What we have is, in our community, hearts of darkness that are being bred because there is a lack of nurture and care, because parents are distracted and addicted and hurt themselves. And always in therapy, we're saying, well, who are we going to blame? Are we going to blame our parents for this pain we're in, for this trauma? Because if we blame the parents, then we're going to blame the grandparents, and then we blame their grandparents, and the list goes on and on and on. Really, if we continue to blame one another, we get nowhere. Really, what we have to do is we have to take responsibility. We have to look this thing in the eye and say, we've got a serious problem and we need to fix it. And how can we come together to fix it so we can all be safe? If we just respond in fear and anger, we will not fix the problem. We have in our society low joy communities all over the places. All over the place, whether it's in schools or workplaces or churches or families. Low joy communities are where you have a narcissistic predator, somebody who's a bully. Then you have possums who are running from the bullies. And then there are no protectors present. There are no protectors present. So if there's no protectors present, then the bullies continue to exploit. And unfortunately, in many homes across our country, children are being exploited because the parents are dysfunctional and they are not loving their children. They're exploiting their weakness and damaging them. And it's so harmful. And so we as a culture, we need to be able to create high joy communities where there's gentle protectors everywhere that have the most dominant brains. If the gentle protectors have the most dominant brains, then the bullies cannot withstand that. And when we create cultures of love where children are not bullied for their differences, when we're talking to our children about how to love and be tender to others' weaknesses, tender to their own weaknesses and tender to others, so that we create an atmosphere in our society of acceptance and love, and that we don't go into enemy mode, that we don't teach our children that if you think differently than us, then you're not right and something's wrong with you, and don't talk to people who are different. That we are embracing all humankind, all walks of life, all faiths, all body styles, all neurological differences, all color differences, that we are embracing each other with love and not trying to change one another, just loving each other, making people more important than problems. And really working hard to check ourselves to say, am I doing that? Am I the kind of person who exploits weakness? Do I exploit my own weakness? Do I exploit the weaknesses of others? Do I think that people who don't look like me or act like me or talk like me are less than me? Do I teach my children this? And am I actively cultivating connection and belonging and relationship, even with those who are not like me? Or am I in this vortex of only being around those who I think of as similar status to me? Multi generational, multicultural, multi faith, every type of diversity present, that we can really learn and grow and love one another and invite our young people into atmospheres where this is happening. Invite these young men who are hurting and damaged, who are the fringe of society, who are acting in violent ways, and saying to them, like, listen, I see you. I see this isn't who you're intended to be. I see that there's something about you that really matters and you're important. And let me bring you into relationship. Not just being nice when I see you, but actually doing community with you so that you know that you matter. That we would really not just think, oh, how can I turn that person in and get them into trouble, which sometimes is appropriate because of where people are, but actually caring for those people, knocking on their door, saying, what's going on with you? How can I help? So these are just some thoughts I'm having over the last 24 hours, and I'm sure there's so many more thoughts all of us are having, but I wanted to put out there some of those thoughts and just see about a dialogue that we might, continue to have in order to come together as a society and not be more divided. So I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.